welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a really fascinating listener-provided source. It's an academic paper exploring the Holo Informational model of consciousness.
It's definitely a deep topic, pulling together threads from physics, neuroscience.
Right, and information theory too. It suggests consciousness isn't just, a brain byproduct, but maybe something fundamental woven into the universe itself.
Exactly. It challenges some core assumptions.
So for anyone listening who's fascinated by, say, interconnectedness, the nature of reality, or these cutting-edge theories, this should be quite the journey.
Absolutely. It's highly interdisciplinary.
Our mission, then, for this deep dive.
Right.
Let's try to unpack the main ideas of this Holo Informational model. What are its core tenets, and what does it imply for how we think about the mind, the brain, and, well, everything?
Sounds good. The model presented in the paper really aims for transdisciplinary synthesis. It draws heavily on some key foundational concepts.
Like holonomic brain theory, quantum-holographic ideas.
Yes, and the non-locality we see in quantum fields. To really get it, we need to look at the thinkers whose work paved the way.
Okay, so the paper mentions Karl Pribram, David Bohm, and Harumi Umezawa, big names. For listeners maybe new to them, what were their key contributions here?
Let's start with Pribram. He was a neuroscientist, and his holonomic brain theory was quite radical for its time.
How so?
Well, instead of seeing brain functions as strictly localized, Pribram suggested the cortex operates more like a quantum-holographic system.
A hologram in the head.
In a manner of speaking. He found neural activity wasn't just circuits firing, but distributed non-local informational patterns. And interestingly, his math for these neural nets looked a lot like Schrödinger's equation.
From quantum mechanics.
Yes, and it even included a term similar to Bohm's quantum potential. This hinted at a really deep connection between brain processes and quantum principles.
So Pribram thought memories, for instance, weren't stored in one spot, but spread out, like in a hologram.
Exactly. Encoded in wave interference patterns across the network. Damage a piece of a hologram, you don't lose one part of the image, right? It just gets fuzzier.
Okay, that makes sense. A distributed pattern. And David Bohm, his quantum holographic theory sounds absolutely central here.
It really is. Bohm proposed a fundamental rethink of reality itself. He talked about two main levels, the implicate order and the explicate order.
Implicate and explicate. Okay, what do those mean?
The implicate order is the deeper level. Undivided wholeness, everything interconnected non-locally, outside of our usual space and time. Think of it as a spectral dimension, full of potential frequencies.
And the explicate.
That's the universe we see and interact with. Our familiar space-time with seemingly separate objects and events. Bohm saw a constant flow, a dynamic exchange between these two.
He called it the Holo movement.
Yes, the Holo movement. Everything in our explicate reality is constantly unfolding from the implicate and unfolding back into it, like patterns emerging and dissolving in a flowing stream.
So our everyday world is sort of a projection, unfolding from this deeper, connected potential.
That's a good way to put it. And he added another layer, the super implicate order.
Okay, what's that?
He proposed it as an even higher level informational structure. You could maybe think of it as related to the universal wave function. Its role is to organize the implicate order.
Into the stable forms we actually see.
Exactly. Into matter, energy, even consciousness itself. For Bohm, these weren't fundamentally different things, but expressions of the same underlying informational order, guided by the super implicate.
The paper mentions his work faced resistance initially. Something about politics.
Yes, that's important context. Bohm was targeted during the McCarthy era in the U.S., which really overshadowed his work for a long time, unfortunately.
So non-scientific factors held back his ideas.
It seems so. John Bell, later known for Bell's theorem, famously wondered why Bohm's interpretation, which so elegantly handled things like wave-particle duality, was often ignored. It shows how science isn't always just about the science.
And how did Bohm's interpretation tackle those big quantum puzzles? Wave-particle duality, non-locality.
It's quite different from the standard Copenhagen view. Bohm said particles are particles, always. They have definite positions, but their behavior is guided by something he called the quantum potential. This is a non-local field everywhere at once.
Guiding the particle. How?
It carries active information about the particle's entire environment, influencing its path instantaneously, faster than light, it seems. This directly addresses how entangled particles can be correlated over vast distances.
So the information is coordinating them.
Through this quantum potential, yes, and the wave-like behavior we observe. Bohm argued that comes from the particle interacting with this incredibly complex, sensitive potential field. When we try to measure the particle, we disturb the potential, leading to those probabilistic outcomes.
That's a very different picture of quantum reality. Deterministic, in a way, but guided by this hidden information field.
Exactly, it provides a more continuous picture. And then there's the third key figure, Hirumi Umezawa. His work in quantum field theory is also crucial.
Right. The paper mentions his concept of a fundamental non-local quantum field. How does that fit in?
Umezawa described a quantum field that isn't localized like, say, an electromagnetic field. It's seen as the basis for all fundamental forces and particles. It implies this deep, inherent interconnectedness everywhere.
So an event here could instantly influence something far away through this field.
That's the idea. Without energy needing to travel between them in the classical sense, it reinforces this notion of a fundamentally interwoven universe where information operates beyond our usual rules of locality.
Okay, so we have Pribram's holographic brain, Bohm's implicate-explicit orders and quantum potential, and Umezawa's non-local field. That's a powerful foundation. The paper then looks at evidence for this holographic nature. That this is where theory meets observation.
Precisely. And there are several compelling lines. It brings up Jacob Bekenstein and Juan Maldacena's work, especially within string theory.
What did they propose?
They suggested, independently, that the information describing a volume of space could actually be encoded on a lower dimensional boundary of that space, like a hologram.
Encoding 3D info on a 2D surface.
Sort of, yes. Maldacena's model specifically suggests our 3D universe with gravity might be equivalent to a simpler, flatter quantum field theory on its boundary, without gravity. It's a way to potentially reconcile quantum mechanics and general relativity, especially regarding black holes.
A universe as a projection from a flatter reality. That's mind-bending. Is there evidence supporting this?
There is. The paper mentions research by Haneda, Hayakatalk, and others. They performed complex calculations related to quantum black holes using Maldacena's holographic principle.
Yeah.
The results showed a remarkable agreement between the properties of the black hole described in the bulk 3D space and the corresponding quantum field theory on its 2D boundary. This lends pretty strong support to the holographic idea, at least in that theoretical context.
Wow. Okay. What about beyond black holes? Lee Smolin's holographic principle is also mentioned.
Smolin takes a broader view. He suggests the universe is like a network of holographic regions. The key idea is that the information content of any region isn't set by its volume, but by the area of its boundary.
So space itself isn't fundamental.
In his view, it emerges as a way to describe the information flow between these boundaries. The universe acts as a kind of non-local informational system, where each part reflects the others.
And the paper connects this to fractal patterns.
Yeah.
Seeing similar shapes at different scales across nature.
Yes, exactly. It points out these harmonic, fractal-like, self-similar patterns showing up everywhere.
Like where?
Oh, the distribution of galaxies, neural network branching, cosmic background radiation fluctuations, even things like earthquake frequencies, economic systems, the structure of the internet.
All showing similar repeating patterns at different sizes.
That's right. These are characteristic of fractals pioneered by Mandelbrot. The fact that these patterns are so widespread across vastly different systems and scales hints at a possible underlying universal holographic organizing principle.
This theme of information being fundamental keeps coming up. The paper then explicitly discusses information as a primary aspect of reality, right alongside matter and energy. That feels like a major conceptual shift.
It absolutely is. It references the philosopher David Chalmers, who argues information isn't just something about the world, but a fundamental constituent of it. He even suggests conscious experience might be tied to this intrinsic information.
And this leads to information physics.
Yes, championed by people like Wojciech Zurek. A key idea there is a law of conservation of information, maybe even more fundamental than the conservation of energy.
Conservation of information. How does that work with entropy, the tendency towards disorder?
Zurek connects physical entropy to information theory. He sees it as partly our lack of knowledge about a system that's Shannon's statistical entropy, and partly the system's inherent complexity or disorder algorithmic entropy. His work suggests the total information in an isolated system stays constant, even if our knowledge changes.
So information isn't lost, just rearranged.
In a fundamental sense, yes. The paper also mentions Léon Brillouin's theorem.
What did that show?
Berlin established a direct mathematical link between order, information, and negentropy, which is like negative entropy, a measure of organization. More information means less entropy, more order.
And that link is logarithmic. The paper calls that holographic.
Yes, logarithmic relationships often imply scale invariance, where the same principle holds across different magnitudes. It reinforces information as a fundamental currency of organization.
Then there's Henri Atlin's view of entropy, adding nuance. Not just disorder, but complexity, especially in life.
Right. Atlin argued that for self-organizing systems like organisms, entropy isn't just chaos, it's also a measure of complexity and potential information. He stressed the importance of ambiguity, balancing informational variety with redundancy. A bit of ambiguity might even drive self-organization and autonomy.
So complexity arises from managing information.
That's the idea. And Eric Jantsch extended this self-organization principle to the entire cosmos. Jantsch saw cosmic evolution not as random decay, but as a continuous process where systems co-evolve towards greater complexity, increased variety, and more efficient information storage by reducing redundancy. From galaxies to life, it's an increase in informational content.
And William Seeger brings in the meaning of information for consciousness, not just the number of bits.
Exactly. Seeger points out that consciousness seems tied to the semantic significance, the meaning, not just the quantity of information. He refers to quantum experiments like the two-slit or quantum erasure, where non-causal correlations hint that something more than just bit capacity is involved when observation and perhaps consciousness come into play.
Which leads to Vlatko-Vajral's quantum informational theory of the universe. What's the gist of that?
Vajral takes it all the way. He proposes everything matter, energy, space-time can ultimately be described in informational terms, specifically quantum information terms.
Moving from bits to qubits.
Yes. Qubits, with superposition and entanglement, allow for vastly more complex information processing. Vajral argues entanglement creates non-local correlations via quantum information, essentially making information the fundamental fabric of reality.
This really paves the way for John Wheeler's "it from bit." That phrase captures so much.
It's incredibly profound, isn't it? Wheeler's idea is that every particle, field, even space-time gets its existence from yes or no answers, binary choices made through observation.
All things physical are information theoretic in origin.
And that this is a participatory universe. His words. Our act of observing, of asking those yes-no questions and getting answers is what brings the physical world into being, in his view.
He used a simple photon detection example.
Right, we say a photon hit the detector. But Wheeler asked, what is the photon before or after? The real event is the detector registering something, a click, essentially, a binary outcome, yes or no. That indivisible bit of information, Wheeler argued, is the it.
And the cosmological version with the quasar light takes this across billions of years.
It's mind-boggling. Light takes two paths around a galaxy. We decide now, billions of years later, whether to measure which path it took, particle-like, or let them interfere, wave-like. Our choice seems to affect what happened way back then.
Supporting the idea that recorded information is fundamental, regardless of time.
That's the implication Wheeler drew. He even suggested quantum information is more fundamental than energy, matter, or space-time, which is obviously hugely relevant if you're building a consciousness model based on non-local information.
The paper mentions Matsky's energy information duality analogy too, like particle wave.
Yes, suggesting that understanding this potential duality might be key to understanding consciousness, much like resolving the particle wave duality was key for quantum mechanics.
And the paper clearly favors Bohm's model over Copenhagen for consciousness. Why is that?
Mainly because Bohm's model is deterministic and avoids some of the paradoxes around measurement and wave-particle duality found in the Copenhagen interpretation. Bohm's quantum potential offers a continuous, causal explanation that fits better with non-locality and relativity. It seems a more suitable framework for a consciousness that's deeply connected to the physical, informational structure of the universe.
Okay, so with all that foundation, the paper talks about a cosmic information code and self-organization driving cosmic evolution. How does that work?
It proposes this constant interplay between entropy, the drive towards disorder, and this underlying non-local quantum-holographic informational order. This tension isn't destructive. It actually drives the universe towards increasing complexity and higher levels of organization.
So the universe is processing its own information, becoming more complex?
That's the picture. Quantum information isn't just passive. It's seen as fundamental, the basis for unifying consciousness and the universe's development.
And the paper outlines stages of this increasing complexity.
Yes. 4 broad stages are proposed. First, the cosmosphere. Basic physics, gravity, nuclear forces, information stored in atoms.
Then life emerges.
Right. The biosphere. Macromolecular systems, DNA encoding vast amounts of information, self-replicating life.
Followed by minds.
The noosphere. Complex neural networks, neurotransmitters, brains capable of incredible information processing.
And the final state.
The holosphere or consciousness sphere. This represents the potential interconnection of all consciousness and the universe via these non-local quantum-holographic networks. A kind of cosmic consciousness emerges.
So consciousness isn't an accident, but a natural outcome of this cosmic information processing.
That's the implication, yes. Information consciousness is framed as an irreducible physical dimension, like energy or matter, driving self-organization.
Which brings us to non-local coherence in living systems. This isn't just quantum weirdness, it's happening in biology.
Increasingly, the evidence points that way. The paper highlights how living organisms show remarkable coordination across different scales, much faster than classical signaling allows.
Instantaneous coordination within the body and even with the environment.
It seems so, suggesting underlying quantum informational processes are at play.
What kind of examples does the paper give?
Things like quantum entanglement observed in molecules within biological systems, quantum tunneling and enzyme actions, possible Bose-Einstein condensates.
Also the Frulich effect and superradiance.
Yes, Frulich coherence involves coordinated vibrations, and superradiance, a collective quantum emission, has been suggested in microtubules, synapses, even cerebrospinal fluid. It points to quantum effects being potentially widespread in biology.
The paper mentions Erwin Schrödinger again, his idea of dynamic order in life. How's that different from normal order?
Schrödinger, in What is Life?, contrasted mechanical order, like building something from parts or crystal forming, with dynamic order, which he called order from order. Living things maintain this dynamic order by constantly processing information.
It's based on information, not just structure.
Right. Non-local informational correlations allow for the incredible coherence and rapid responses we see in life, like the whole body reacting instantly in a fight-or-flight situation. Classical mechanics alone struggles to explain that speed and integration.
And Ho's work on water and living systems connects here.
Yes, Ho showed that water in organisms isn't just bulk liquid, it's highly organized, like a liquid crystal, forming an interconnected network throughout cells and tissues.
And this structured water does what?
She argued it's crucial for maintaining the organism's low entropy state, enabling highly efficient energy transfer and rapid, almost instantaneous communication across the whole system, possibly through quantum coherence within this water network.
Okay, this naturally leads to the brain. How can a quantum mind exist when quantum states are usually so fragile, especially in a warm brain? The decoherence problem.
That's the huge challenge, absolutely. Decoherence usually destroys quantum states very quickly in warm, noisy environments, but the paper points to photosynthesis as a counterexample.
Photosynthesis uses quantum coherence efficiently.
Remarkably so. Plants have evolved sophisticated protein structures that shield quantum coherence in chlorophyll molecules, allowing energy to be transferred with incredible efficiency, even managing noise and reestablishing coherence. Biology can do it.
So, the brain might have similar tricks, ways to protect quantum states.
That's the hypothesis. The brain's incredibly dense and organized molecular environment proteins, ordered water, ions might create tiny protected pockets where neurons or parts of them can sustain quantum coherent states for maybe milliseconds, long enough to be useful.
Is there evidence for that kind of protection?
Well, the paper mentions work by Bertin and others showing ordered water can mediate quantum coherent electron transfer between proteins over surprising distances. It suggests mechanisms for quantum communication within cells exist.
And how would these fleeting, localized quantum states become integrated across the brain?
The idea is through non-local quantum phenomena like entanglement and superradiance. If coherence arises in many small areas, these quantum links could potentially propagate that coherence instantly across larger networks, helped by the brain's redundancy. This could be how integrated states like conscious awareness arise.
This connects to the model by Jibu, Yasu, and Umezawa, the one with 2 levels of brain dynamics.
Yes, they proposed a quantum level based on vibrational fields of water and biomolecules, and a classical level, the neural activity we usually measure. But crucially, they saw these levels as coupled.
Quantum influencing classical.
That's the idea. They even coined terms like corticons for quanta of biomolecular vibrations and exchange bosons for water vibrations as carriers of this quantum coherence.
And the dissipative quantum brain model, Ricciardi and Umezawa.
That model uses ideas from quantum field theory, specifically spontaneous symmetry breaking, to explain how large-scale, coherent patterns of neural activity, maybe underlying perception or thought, could emerge from the ordering of these underlying quantum fields. Order emerging from the quantum substrate.
Umezawa also had a specific idea about memory, didn't he? Not stored in fixed places.
Right. He suggested memory isn't static bits in specific synapses, but rather dynamic ordered patterns maintained by long-range quantum correlations throughout these brain fields. The continuous maintenance of these patterns by massless quanta is consciousness, in his view, a constantly regenerating informational pattern.
Which is very holographic. This leads to the contrast between Sir John Eccles and Pribram. Dualism versus monism.
A classic debate. Eccles, the Nobel laureate, was a dualist. He believed mind and brain were separate, but interacted at the quantum level.
He talked about dendrons and cycons.
Yes, dendrons being brain structures, fine fibers, and cycons being units of mind interacting at synapses via quantum processes. He and Beck even proposed a quantum mechanism for synaptic function.
But Pribram, building on his holographic ideas, was a monist.
Yes. While respecting Eccles' neuroscience, Pribram saw a unified basis. He noted that Eccles' dendrons form receptive fields that can be described mathematically by Gabor functions or wavelets.
Which Gabor called quantum information.
Exactly, because their math resembled quantum physics. And crucially, Gabor developed these functions for compressing telephone messages. Pribram saw this shared math between brain processing and communication as pointing to a deeper structural identity between the physical brain structures, dendrons, and mental units, cycons.
So, not two interacting things, but two aspects of one underlying reality.
Precisely. Pribram proposed a fundamental ground, a potential reality, an informational flux, maybe like Heisenberg's potential world. Both mind and matter emerge from this ground. Mathematics, a mental process, describes the order in that ground that organizes matter.
An order beyond space-time, defined by information, by spectra.
That's Pribram's view. The Fourier transform relationship connects the spectral domain, frequencies like the implicate order, and the space-time domain, explicate order.
Okay, so finally, the paper pulls all this together into the Holo Informational model of consciousness itself. How does it synthesize Bohm, Pribram, and these other ideas?
It takes Bohm's super implicate orders and Pribram's holonomic brain ideas and merges them. The individual mind isn't isolated. It's a subsystem of this universal hologram constantly interacting with it.
Accessing and interpreting the holographic information field.
Exactly. Consciousness is seen as arising from this continuous holo movement, this non-local quantum information exchange between the brain and the deeper super implicate orders. Our personal consciousness is essentially this universal extended consciousness observing itself through our individual brain-mind system.
Which means we're fundamentally interconnected with everything.
Indivisibly so, according to the model. Connected with the entire multiverse through this informational structure.
The paper uses the Buddhist metaphor of Indra's net to illustrate this.
Yes, it's a beautiful analogy. An infinite net with jewels at each intersection, each jewel reflecting every other jewel infinitely. It captures that sense of holographic interconnectedness where each part contains the whole.
And the final perspective on the cosmos.
It suggests viewing the cosmos as a self-referent, self-maintaining, self-creating system or organism. No specific goal, no single creator, no absolute center, or perhaps the center is everywhere. It just is like a fundamental gift.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, the Holo Informational model presents this really compelling integrated vision. Brain, mind, universe, all linked through a non-local quantum holographic information field.
Information as fundamental, driving complexity and consciousness itself.
It attempts to bridge that old mind-matter gap, and it resonates, interestingly, with some very ancient wisdom traditions about interconnectedness.
It certainly offers a framework that potentially unifies science and certain philosophical or spiritual insights.
It's definitely a lot to think about. It leaves us with some big questions to ponder, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Like if we really start seeing the universe and ourselves as fundamentally informational and holographically interconnected, how might that change everything? Our sense of self, our relationship to others, to the planet.
What new questions does it open up for research? In neuroscience, physics, maybe even fields like medicine or psychology?
Could understanding consciousness this way lead to new approaches for well-being, or even help us tackle big cosmological mysteries? It's a fascinating perspective shift to consider.
It definitely pushes the boundaries of our current understanding.
A truly deep dive today. Thank you for joining us on this exploration.